Hey guys, welcome to another video. My name is Ian. This is the channel Ian the Reader. Today I have another thriller author ranking / review video for you all. Today I'll be talking about the 3 novels published by TJ Newman, who is just an incredible writer. Her brand new novel, Worst Case Scenario, is out this week, and I'm super excited to talk to you all about this book as well as her previous 2 novels, Falling and Drowning, all of which I was lucky enough to get ARCs for and read and adored. So yeah, this is a pretty hard ranking video. To be honest, it's the hardest one yet because I feel really positively about all of these books. With the thriller author ranking videos I've done before, like Riley Sager, Alex Michaelides, Lucy Foley, there were some clear bottom choice books that were just not my favorite. And that's not the case here. My ranking of these changes every day, it feels like. So we'll see if this is my ultimate ranking, years down the road, but I love all of these books. So let's just start there. If you have not read anything by TJ Newman, I highly recommend her books. She writes some of the most fast-paced and gripping fiction that I have ever read, and she has a really interesting perspective on the stories that she's telling, because if you did not know, TJ Newman, before becoming an author, was a flight attendant for quite some time, and so she has all this knowledge and experience that she brings to the table with her books, and there's just such an authority to her voice, and you can really just get invested and immersed in the scenarios because she really paints a very clear picture of these situations that her characters are in, because she has had to think to herself, okay, what if I was in that situation? How would my knowledge impact the way I acted in these situations? So super cool aspect to her writing that I really enjoy, and ultimately is what drew me to her books. I read an arc of her debut novel, Falling, before it came out, and that's rare for me that I pick up arcs of debut novels just because I don't know if I'm going to mesh with an author, so I don't like to take on the commitment of having to read their book if it's not going to be an author that I know I will enjoy at least somewhat. So, but I was drawn to her books because of her experience, and I'm so glad I read her books because they're amazing. All right, no more rambling though. Without any further ado, let's jump into the ranking and review. Okay, my third favorite, my least favorite quote unquote of TJ Newman's books is her second novel, Drowning. So I really love this book a lot, so it was really hard for me to put it here, and it's weird, at different times it was my favorite. Let that speak for itself. But Drowning is a really interesting and emotional story. So the whole premise of this book and the way the plane interacts with the story is that at the very beginning of the story, a plane with a full amount of passengers ditches, which is the term that is used when a plane has to crash into the ocean. And it is insane and terrifying, especially I don't like the ocean. I mean, I like the ocean, but like it also terrifies me, just the depths, and you don't know what's down there. And yeah, this was a crazy start to her book. She really knows how to just hook the reader in. Very quickly you realize this is a terrible situation. Obviously there's the initial crash, which causes a lot of damage and lives are lost there, but then there's the follow-up of what to do afterwards. Some people choose to try to get out of the plane. Some people choose to stay in the plane for different reasons. And we have a lot of different POVs that we get. We get people who are on the plane. We get people who have family members on the plane. We get the people who are trying to rescue this flight and all of these passengers. And it is so intense. Like, all of her books are so intense. But what I will say about this one is that there is an emotional key into this story that is maybe not as prevalent in at least one of her other books. This is probably her most emotional, if I had to say, because it's immediate tragedy, and it's also immediate fear for all the passengers. They immediately know, like, they're in an intense situation, and it is just, it's crazy. And it is emotional because we follow a lot of different perspectives of people in this situation, and some of them immediately lose family members or have different complex things going on in their lives that they now have to reckon with as they realize that they might not make it out of this plane. It's very emotional, and there's also a really interesting dynamic of the passengers who are left and their relationships, how they interact with each other in this life or death situation. All bets are off, anything can happen, and this book is absolutely wild. I was on the edge of my seat, and I love this book. Really, really great character work here. Some of her best character work, I will say. And it's hard for me to put this at the bottom. And again, any other day I might put it at the top or in the middle, but this is just how I'm feeling right now. Drowning is still amazing. It's like a 4.5 star for me if I had to rate it, and it's an absolute blast, so read it. Start here, that way the rest is just even more good. Do that. My second favorite TJ Newman book is her brand new novel, Worst Case Scenario. So this one, I will say, is her most ambitious and most terrifying novel. Yeah, it's crazy. So the whole premise of this story is a worst case scenario in which a pilot flying a plane full of passengers has a heart attack and dies immediately, and his plane crashes into a nuclear plant. Whew, this book was terrifying because it didn't just deal with, really the plane has a small portion to do with the story. It's the catalyst for what happens, but this is like a worldwide catastrophe type book full of long-term implications and questions of what would happen if this really took place in real life. It is a truly worst case scenario, and my gosh, I was hooked and on the edge of my seat, and really, like I said it already, but I was terrified because thinking about this and the extreme destruction that could take place if something like this ever happened, it literally just filled my heart with fear, because what would we do? And this follows what would people do if something like this were to happen. And I will say this book feels like such a testament to the strength of humanity and the strength of community, and it feels almost like a sports movie. Not really, that's like such a bad analogy, but it just like you are rooting for this team that is up against like insurmountable odds, and they really have to rally together to try to overcome the insane obstacles that are in front of them. And there's just so much heart to the story that I really loved. It was definitely emotional and tragic because it starts off with an entire flight dying, but that's kind of it's crazy that that's the smallest tragedy of sorts that takes place, because this could literally destroy humanity. And it's, like I said, her most ambitious novel because it's very speculative of like what could happen, what would happen. I imagine this required the most research from her, and it's one that I really appreciate because it kind of confirmed for me that she's more than just a one-trick pony. Not that like her one trick was bad or that I really thought she was a one-trick pony, because her writing itself is just so compelling that I knew if she ever kind of switched lanes away from like these plane and airport like thrillers, I would still be super excited and engaged and love what she wrote. But this one is less to do with that and more to do with this worldwide problem and how people arise to overcome it, or at least try to. And I really loved that. There were some great characters here, some huge emotional moments throughout the whole story, very, very emotionally tense and powerful, and just a book that blew me away. I read this in a day and it was incredible, and I'm just so grateful that I get to read TJ Newman's books and that I am a fan of hers and that I can look forward to her new releases, and that she's at the start of her career. She really is. She's written 3 books relatively quickly. They've all been bangers, and I cannot wait to see what she writes next. That being said, my favorite TJ Newman book is Falling, which is her debut novel. Now, this is not to say like that this book will never be topped, but the reason I put this as my favorite is because of how much it surprised me. I would say quality-wise, the other two are on par with this one, and that was ultimately what I had to decide my ranking based on, was not the quality but on my own personal connection and feelings to these stories. And I put Falling at number 1 because I was just so blown away by this book. Like I said, this is an arc that I read. It was her debut novel. I'd never read anything by this author. I was just drawn to her as a writer because of her experience as a flight attendant, and the idea of this story was one that immediately grabbed my attention as well. And I couldn't believe the book when I read it. I could not believe it. I recommended it to anybody who would listen. I loved it. It was 5 stars. It was incredible. And I was just so blown away because it was so much better than I had anticipated it being. And I still stick by that. So Falling is crazy. At the start of the book, we have a pilot who goes to start flying a plane, and as he is taking off, he receives an email that reveals to him that his family has been taken hostage, and the person who is holding them hostage says the only way that his family is going to survive is if the pilot intentionally crashes the plane. Which, what a scenario. This book it should be a film already. I think that the rights have been purchased by some production company or whatever, but my gosh, this demands to be a film, and I would watch the heck out of it multiple times probably, because this book is the definition of the edge of your seat. From the get-go, like, we know things are kind of happening at the very start, and then the pilot finds out, and things go from there, but it is just insanity, so much tension immediately. And what I love about this is kind of the mystery behind who is doing this, and you realize shortly after getting into the situation that there might be more going on, and that you can't necessarily trust everyone on the flight, and it is just so intense. The speculation of who can be trusted, who cannot, which characters are going to make rational decisions, which ones are not, how this is all going to turn out, what the pilot is going to do for that matter. It's such a crazy book, and I adore it. This is the perfect starting place for you to read from TJ Newman if you want to. It is a wonderful debut novel, a perfect debut thriller in my opinion, and I cannot heap the praises high enough upon this book and TJ Newman's books. I'll read anything she writes, like I've said numerous times I think in this video, but this is truly one of the most promising thriller writers out there at the moment. She has not missed yet, and I don't think that she's going to. I have a lot of faith in TJ Newman, and I highly recommend that you check out her books if you have not already. Worst Case Scenario is out now. It's really amazing. I recommend you read that one, and Drowning and Falling. They're all so good. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you have read any TJ Newman books, or if any of these sound like books you would enjoy. Like I said, they all get my stamp of approval. I love all of them so much, and I think that you will too. They're just a good time. If you want to read a book that is just compelling from the get-go and will not let you go until the final page, and is full of characters and good writing, and I say full of characters that you will root for to the end, and great writing and compelling plot, just pick up TJ Newman's books. They'll get you out of a reading slump. They will lift your spirits. They will put you on the edge of your seat. What more can I say? I have nothing else to say. I'm rambling at this point, but go read TJ Newman. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed. Leave a like and comment and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll have more videos out soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.